Hi, welcome to Career Days at NTNU. My name is Deanna Gallenbohr, and I will be your host over the next 2 days. If you haven't yet signed up for tomorrow's session, you'll be able to access it directly from the website. We're going to start today with a message from Tor Grande, the Pro-Rector of Research at NTNU.
My name is Tor Grande, and I'm the Pro-Rector for Research and Dissemination at NTNU. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to the Digital PhD Career Day at NTNU. One of the first questions I often ask potential PhD candidates is what their favorite job is in 5 years' time. For me as a supervisor, it's important to know the dreams or the plans for every PhD candidate already from the beginning of the study. It is a great, or future career opportunities is a great motivation and inspiration both for the candidate and for me as a supervisor. Last year, more than 400 PhD candidates graduated from NTNU for the second year in a row. Most of the PhD candidates continue their career outside academia. A PhD degree is a door opener to a whole range of career opportunities in the private sector and in the public sector. And if you have ambitions to continue your career in research or in academia, a PhD is a key. Without a PhD degree, you will not be able to compete for a postdoc position or a research position in a research institute. Remember also that the whole world is your job market, and a PhD is a door opener to get international experience. My experience with the PhD candidates I have been supervised is that their competence and their knowledge obtained by a PhD degree is highly relevant, independent of their choice of career path. It's a difference between a master degree and a PhD degree, and your employer will notice and take advantage of your strength. The purpose of the PhD Career Day is to give our PhD candidates, potential new PhD candidates, and our postdoctoral fellows an opportunity to get inspiration about future career opportunities. You will learn more about concrete examples of career opportunities in academia, in industry, in business, and in the public sector. How do you write an application to a position in the different sectors? This is also a topic you will learn more about. I hope you find the 2 career days useful and you get inspiration for the future career plans. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Tor Grande. Next, we're going to hear from Espen Schønneland Veifring with Hydro Aluminum, and he'll be giving his talk, I Have a PhD, What Now?
Thank you. I will share my presentation. So, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for inviting me to do this talk. It's I think it was a fun challenge to think about call it the consequence or the benefit of having a PhD. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Espen Schønneland Veifring. I work in Hydro Aluminium in the technology and operational support unit, doing technology development for aluminium metal. So I have a PhD. What happened? Well, I grew up on a farm in Ringsaker. For those of you well known with Eastern Norway geography, it's a bit north of Hamar. I had a great chemistry teacher in high school, which taught us the nice world of chemistry. I was wondering what should I do afterwards. I had a cousin doing civil engineer, master in industrial chemistry and biotechnology at NTNU. She said it was a very nice study. I like chemistry, so I figured, okay, I'll try that. I didn't really know what an engineer was, but it turned out to be very nice. Towards the end of my master, I was thinking, what should I now do? Should I go get a job in the industry, in the public sector, do something completely different, continue studying? But I landed on doing a PhD, and I am very happy about that. It was a very nice 4 years at NTNU. Should mention that Tor Grande, which we just heard, was my supervisor for this. I finished this in 2015 on lead-free ferroelectric materials based on bismuth ferrite and bismuth potassium titanate. And just before I finished that, I got this very nice email from Trolle in Hydro saying that they would offer me a position. So I started out as a project engineer, and now I'm also a group manager for technology development here in Porsgrunn towards materials. Most of my say professional experience is now from Hydro, so I will just say a few words about what Hydro is, because it makes more sense when I talk about examples later, and I reflect about just having a PhD. So this is Hydro very briefly. You can say we have two main legs. One is Hydro Aluminium, where we have the full value chain from mining bauxite, which is the raw material to produce aluminium, producing extruded aluminium profiles, and then also recycling in aluminium afterwards. We also produce a lot of power. The hydropower in Norway is the basis, and also exploring other sources of energy. This energy is typically then used for producing aluminium, so it's not a random coincidence. We have 117 years of technology development in our backs, starting out in the waterfalls in Telemark. Hydro has been into power, to fertilizer, magnesium, oil and gas, petrochemicals, lots of different industries. Now we are working with aluminium and energy. So that was a brief Hydro introduction. Then to the topic, you have a PhD. What now? So either you have a PhD or you will have at some point. And that's a very good thing. And when thinking about this topic, I came to think of one reflection I did towards the end of my master, which sort of tipped the choice of what to do towards a PhD. And that was that I wanted to be the expert. Being a civil engineer, having a master's degree, you're very good at many things. You've learned a little bit about a lot of things, but you're not necessarily an expert in one particular field. And I wanted to be that, to say I'm the best at this. So that was a big motivation for me doing a PhD. And when you defended, or when you will defend your thesis at some point, you are the expert. You are the one person in the world that knows best what you have done, the topic you have worked on. You know it better than your supervisor. You know it better than your opponents. And it's a great feeling, and it is a great benefit when you go out to the world. So try to, when you go out after your PhD, be the expert and exploit it, and be aware that you are very good at what you're doing. And use this to challenge the almost the establishment. Challenge what you see, challenge the opinions that you meet, and it's not necessarily more difficult than asking why. When I came into the aluminium business, I hadn't worked with aluminium at all, not in my master, not in my PhD. I was told by someone who worked alongside aluminium for a long time that it's a very conservative business. Change doesn't happen overnight. And to some extent, that's true, but we as a company and the world around us, not just Hydro, but any place, do rely on people challenging the conclusions coming from seniors, for instance, things that were tried. In my case, again, I can propose, we should try this. And someone says, no, we tried it 30 years ago, it doesn't work. But 30 years ago is a long time. 10 years ago is a long time. So you come in with new competence. You come in with knowledge that wasn't there 10 or 30 years ago. The technology has developed in general in 10 or 30 years. So you could be the one having the competence and the skills that tips a very good idea to a successful idea instead of something that doesn't work. Because the challenges prevail, but the people in Hydro or in any company, they change and new competence comes in. One other important thing to remember that you get from your PhD is that you're trained in communication. So you write papers, you go to conferences, you write your thesis, obviously, you do your dissertation, you discuss with your colleagues in your research group the challenges or the successes that you have. You talk to your friends and family about what you're doing. Some of them might be very interested. Some of them may not be interested at all. But communication is extremely important, and to be able to communicate what you're doing also to the ones that are not experts in your field. So having a chemistry or material science degree and talking to someone who's great at computer science or has studied history for 10 years, it is fun, and it's a challenge which forces you to think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And don't be afraid of the challenge of communicating with others with different backgrounds. It's you learn a lot, and learning is the fourth box I would put up here. That yes, you have a PhD and you are the expert in the topic that you have worked on, but you don't know everything. And that's also a realization I made throughout my PhD and while I was writing my thesis. Okay, I've learned a lot. I brought new knowledge to the world, but there's so vast amounts of knowledge in the scientific community that I don't know, either because it's in a different field or if it's just because I didn't find it when I was looking for it. But except that you have a PhD and that you don't know everything, so learn from whoever you can. When you discuss with the colleagues wherever you end up working, learn from them. Think that they also had. Everyone is an expert in something. They also have useful knowledge. So keep developing. Use this learning and communication to get the inspiration to find what you're find the solutions that you're looking for in whatever you're doing. And in this respect, I would add to be the expert, except also to not be the expert. Except that you're not the expert in everything, but having a PhD, you've proven that you're extremely good at learning. You can adopt knowledge. You will end up working most probably in a team together with other people with different knowledges. And accept that they have their expertise and just learn from them. And sort of use an example. This is a Hydro example. I'm sure a lot of other businesses and industries could show a similar example. But before Christmas, Hydro launched its 3 roads to zero CO2 aluminium. This is one, it's carbon capture and storage for our existing primary aluminium production. The second one is HAL0, which is a completely new way of producing aluminium. So it's not just tweaking or adding on to the existing, it's something completely different. And then also recycling of post-consumer scrap. And the 2 left ones here, those are driven by technology development where I work. And we need, Hydro have these challenges. Lots of other people and businesses and in the private or public sector in the world have similar challenges. So we need the smart heads, we need the PhDs to help us solve this. I'm the project manager for HAL0 in Hydro. I don't know everything, all the fields of expertise we need in this development. So I rely on people that are experts, like you are. I rely on the people around me in our team being the expert. I rely on them being a challenger, challenging the possibly what seems to be the obvious solution could be a bad solution and we should do something else. I rely on them being able to communicate their ideas, their thoughts, their say ups and downs so that we as a team can succeed and progress. I rely on them to learn. HAL0 is a new technology which is to a part different than what Hydro is used to doing, meaning that our expert internally, they need to learn a lot of new things. We also need new people coming from the outside with different knowledge. So we're recruiting now, and I've recruited 3 people since last summer. So and when I'm interviewing, I look for these four boxes there. I want someone who's the expert. I want someone who's challenging. I want someone who can communicate, and I want someone who's willing and able to learn. So it's crucial for Hydro. It's crucial for anyone else to have the competence that you bring out to the world. It's crucial that you want to bring it to the world and use the education you have gotten now at NTNU or from any other place you have been during your studies. So with that, I think I will say thank you.
Thanks, Espen. I have a question for you. So when you were applying for jobs and you applied at Hydro, was it Hydro that you were interested in working for? You saw the job, you're like, oh, I've always wanted to work there? Or was it the job, even though it wasn't exactly what you'd done? You mentioned you had never worked with aluminum before.
Yeah.
How did you decide to apply for that position?
It's a very good question, and I was looking for different jobs, and I was considering, should I go and be there was a lot of jobs in say the oil service business as material engineer, but what and nothing bad about the oil business. What triggered me about this Hydro position was that it was an R&D position, so I could continue doing R&D development also then after my PhD in a more applied way than I felt I was able to at the university. So it's, and throughout my studies, Hydro had the competent presentations at the university. They were always saying that, okay, this is a cyclic business. There are ups and downs, but we always keep our R&D effort. And to me, that was appealing, and it's obviously proven to be true. Now that I've been here for what is it, 7 years? So it's a place where you get a lot of responsibility. You get to do your own projects. You get to tag along on other interesting projects, and there's a willingness and eagerness to say challenge what's existing and say, okay, we have this technology today, but we need something in 10 years and in 50 years that can also produce aluminum. Yeah.
Great. All right, and then just one last question. Do you have any advice for PhD students and postdocs who might be interested in working at Hydro, how best to present themselves? And
yeah. I was hoping you would ask the question. I would say, first of all, we are looking for people now. So you go to hydro.com/careers, and there are, I think, 10 positions in technology and operational support. So that's the first. But I recruited now 3 people. So I don't have extreme long experience, but I read 300 applications. And to separate you from the crowd, please do write an application for the position you are applying for, saying why you want this position specifically. In your cover letter, please, typically you attach your CV, and there it says everything you've done. So you don't need to write that in your cover letter or your application letter. In your application letter, you can say, why do you want this job in particular? Either because it's Hydro and Hydro is exciting in general, but if the position asks for something specific knowledge, specific skills, specific background, specific experience, specify it in your cover letter. That would make you stand out from many, many others.
That's great advice. Thanks, Espen.
Thank you.
So now we're going to move on to the next session, which is all about the private sector. Our first speaker is Pierre Major. He's, excuse me, with Augment Cine and OSC Ocean in Ålesund.
Hello, my name is Pierre Major. I am Head of Research at Augment Cine and Offshore Simulator Center, or OSC, and I'm very glad to be here with you virtually to present my experience with the industrial PhD, NTNU Phd. My background is I am French, I'm married, I have 3 kids, 9, 14, and 16. I did French math and physics prep school before 2000, and I graduated from from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in early 2000s. My career was in consulting, software engineering, systems engineering, and it was mainly in Switzerland and Norway. In 2018, I decided to do a PhD at the Institute for Ocean Space and Civil Engineering in Ålesund. And the background of my company is that OSC is a spin-off of NTNU 18 years ago, and we do advanced maritime operation that are comparable to moon landing. So we prepare for operations. So technology-wise, we make lifelike digital twins of the environments, of ships, of offshore cranes, of payloads. And methodology-wise, actually it's a project management that's de-risks projects using virtual prototyping. So I'm going to show you a small video. So we do digital twins, means that we have the correct hydrodynamic model of the ship, also the lifelike model. We have also collision model. We have the wires behavior. Each wire of the crane is in the physics model. We have different load objects. We can create the whole crane or the gripper, for example, or it can be ship-to-ship operations. We have correct ballasting, but most important, we have the human in the loop because we integrate the systems. It's pretty time-consuming and tedious to make the digital twins of new systems. And the first virtual prototyping, VP, project we did took 1.5 years to complete. And the question is, how can we make model faster, more flexible, and more realistic? And how can virtual prototyping improve the planning process of the operations of the customers who go offshore, and to improve de-risks even more the projects? So how can we do that? So should we spend some time reflecting on how to do that? So it means, should you hire external personnel to fix the problem for you? Should you hire more people? Should you hire better able people? Or should you increase the competence level of the company to be involved into the university ecosystem so you can gather the best practices? That's why industrial PhD is very useful. It's a research project for the company. This is not a scholarship. So it's a project between the company and the university, and it has two forms. 3 years at 100%. You completely off from your tasks, from the job for 3 years, or you can be still involved by doing that in 4 years, 75%, and working at 35%. And you have to know that the Research Council finances up to 50%, at least when I started, and up to 100,000 plus per year. Now it might be a bit more, and but you have to be aware of the total cost of the project. Financing side, but also the costs from the university, such as hospitality. You have to be 1 year sitting at the university, and you have other costs. So this is what your thesis is going to look like. It's a masterpiece. You are going to do the best project ever, beat Einstein and so on. But actually, what your project life will be like that, you will be stretched between the company and university on one side, and also your family and sports activity. At least that's what I felt. So at the start of the PhD, people have great plans. They're going to have a perfect project. So they have a perfect, exactly what they're going to do. But at the end, yes, your PhD is more sketchy. And I would advise actually the contrary. So actually, I would advise the contrary, where you have a sketch, a plan, a master plan of your thesis, the great lines, what you are going to do, and at the end of the project, you should have a better plan, a better idea. You will be the expert. So it's an education process. It's not doing something perfect from the start. And so, what should you do in Israel PhD? It's because you have the relevant work experience that is useful for the academia. You know your subjects in a professional or commercial way. as opposed to theoretical. And you're part of a team which needs your knowledge in your company, and you understand how your company works and its politics. And you have a realistic experience that is useful for the company, and you understand what are the future needs of your company and how you can solve the problems. So you have the drive to get things done, and you think out of the box, finding new resources, new way of thinking, of doing things, talking to people, technologies, and so on. So you must be good at time management and keeping a sound work-life balance, because of you're going to be stretched in all directions. And you should have a very good relationship with your boss and your supervisors from before your project starts. And you have also to yes, exactly. So you should have, for example, a previous experience of projects like a research projects, regional funding fund projects, so that you can feel the temperature, feel if there is a good chemistry between the company and the university. The projects that you want to start should be useful for the company. It is not your baby, something that is belong to the company and university as well. And again, the project must match the university's research group expertise and ecosystem, because if not, you're going to be alone working, and it's going to be very depressing. And you have also to understand that universities wants to publish, and the private company wants to survive and to grow. So they have different targets, different objectives, but you can be smart to reunite the target. Yes. So at the end, yeah, we published a lot, and yeah, this is one article I'm pretty proud of. And well, yes, now you've got your PhD. That's fantastic. What are you going to do? What are the benefits? So first of all, I think it's like you will act as a bridge between the company and the university or universities. You understand both worlds, and so you have an idea of human resource perspective, and you can advertise your company in the academia. That's what I do, or what I am doing, and you can identify future colleagues, for example. Hosting bachelor or master thesis, or hosting summer jobs. And also you will be able to write research project application at the regional, national, European level, and it requires to have at least one researcher in the project team. And you have also to remember that to be a supervisor of a thesis, you need to have a PhD, except that for industrial PhD, the company supervisor can be a master, kind of a master's degree. And of course, once you have applied and be granted those projects, you can have the joy to work on those research projects. And also what is really interesting is that the research projects must be aligned with the company strategy. And so you work tighter with strategy, product development, HR planning. That's very interesting. And so you get also promotion with the PhD, and you are the go-to person for applications because you're used to writing. So this comes to the end. I want to advertise some careers, some positions that are open at OSE. And so we are looking for software product manager, controllers, key account managers. So we are looking for both software developers, but also a person knowledgeable with the domain. And the link here is at PHinisheD Careers. Please have a look. And yes, thank you very much for your time.
Tack, Pierre. Next, we have Kristin Collier Valle. She's a marine biologist and environmental advisor at Norbit Aptamar, in Trondheim, and she's going to give her talk, A Biologist Among Us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kristin Collier Valle, and I work as an environmental advisor at NORBIT Aptomar in Trondheim. I have a PhD in marine photosynthesis and biooptics from NTNU, and I've called my presentation for you today, Biologist Among Us. The reason for that is because I work in a technical industry where a lot of my more peripheral colleagues would be quite surprised, I think, to know that I actually hold a PhD in biology. So, who am I? Well, I'm a 46-year-old woman with a husband and 2 kids and a cat living in Trolle, here in Trondheim. I grew up in the thickest forests of Telemark, more specifically a small place called Siljan. And as you see, if you look at the map, that is quite far from the sea that became my life. I was interested in all kinds of animals, and I spent a large part of my childhood observing and drawing and reading about and also dissecting animals, the ones that were already dead, that is. So as you can see, I was always interested in biology, and I was determined to become a biologist from a very early age. I studied natural sciences at Skien videregående skole, graduated there in 1995, so yes, I'm quite old. Then I went to South America to look at the animal life there. I traveled around for about a year. And after that, I moved to Trondheim to study biology. I took a bachelor in marine biology first, 97 to 2001. Continued with the conscient degree in algal ecophysiology from 2001 to 2005, and finished off with my doctoral degree in marine photosynthesis and biooptics from 2007 to 2014. So as you can see, I had a bit of a break there between my conscient degree and my doctoral degree. And in that period, I was field assistant and lecturer at the University Center at Svalbard. And I was also working for a period as a manager at the youth hostel here in Trondheim as well. But during all this time, I was quite sure that I would continue with research. So I was considering a PhD, but I didn't want to take the degree for the sake of the degree. I wanted to make sure that I really got a topic that I was interested in and that I could use for something. I ended up with a project that was a very good mix between biology and technology, and that turned out to be a wise choice in my case. Within my PhD, I taught a lot of different subjects. I wrote or contributed to 5 publications, and I even managed to get the front page on a high-end journal. So I got a lot out of my PhD, and I was quite determined to continue at the university. But then I got a surprising offer from Equinor's research center at Rotvoll. They needed a person or an expert on Arctic fieldwork. So they needed someone with my background and experience from Svalbard, and they also needed someone with a PhD that could be Equinor's expert in a joint industry project on oil spill preparedness in ice-filled waters. So I thought that was really exciting. So I took the position, and during this year at Rotvoll, I learned everything that I possibly could about the offshore oil and gas industry that I knew nothing about, basically, on beforehand. And I managed to even become a project manager on the development of several new environmental technologies. When this year was over, I contacted one of the partners from one of the projects that I had been managing, a company called Aptomar. And I told them that they should definitely hire a marine biologist, since they develop sensors and systems for detection of unintended oil spills. I think they really didn't agree that they needed a marine biologist, but I managed to convince them in the end. So I started working there in 2015, and Aptomar was bought by NORBIT in 2017 and was included in their Oceans group. So yeah, and I work there still. So as you can see, the jump from academia over to the industry was a bit of a coincidence in my case. And I know that's the case also for a lot of others. So a bit on my company. NORBIT is a big industry concern with headquarters in Trondheim at Lade Technopark. Company was founded in 2008 and started with intelligent traffic systems like tracking and electronic toll payment tags. The company has later grown and developed to become a provider of tailored technology to the global maritime market, being everything from offshore oil and gas to defense, aquaculture, subsea, etc., as well as land-based traffic. NORBIT also provides tailored high-end cables for subsea applications and R&D services, prototyping and contract manufacturing within product innovation and realization. So, and NORBIT has 3 production sites or factories, if you like. They are located at Selbu, Røros, and here in Trondheim. NORBIT also has offices in other countries like Poland, Hungary, Italy, UK, Austria, Sweden, Singapore, Brazil, and the United States. And we are currently over 400 employees worldwide. So was it the right choice for me to go over to the industry? Yeah, I would say mostly yes. NORBIT is a highly innovative and diverse company with the slogan "Explore More." A lot of highly motivated people with backgrounds from electronical engineering, mechanical engineering, vessel navigation and management, software development, cybernetics, and in my case, marine biology, all thrive in an environment where every good idea is worth looking at. And it's really encouraged that if you have a good idea, that you should present it to the team. Although I don't do research myself, I am deeply involved in the R&D process, both as a project manager, talking to customers, writing user specifications, teaching, testing, producing training material, setting up training portals, writing user manuals, etc. And I really like that process because compared to the university, you are really out there in the field talking to customers, getting input on what they need in their operations. You get to work on the R&D process, developing if it's a software or a sensor. You can install it at the customer, get them to test it, get feedback, make improvements, install a new version at the customer. And this back and forth process to actually customize a sensor or a solution for the customer is something I really, really like. But like I said mostly yes, if it was the right choice for me, yeah. I have to, the thing that I have to admit that I really miss a little bit is the possibility to really dig deep into a tiny detail or a problem that I can really spend time digging really deep because that part is a little bit different within the industry. But anyways, the differences between a career in academia and a career in the industry is there. We have to deal with that. And there are pros and cons on both sides. And I think I want to mention a few of them because it's quite relevant. First, I would like to mention the responsibilities because in academia, you are responsible for applying for funding yourself. And that is something that can be quite hard and take a lot of time, that you often end up doing that part on the evenings. And another thing is that the research or your research is often self-directed. So it means that you find something and then you dig a little bit into that. Maybe it wasn't the right way to go. Then you go back and you dig a little bit in a different direction. And that getting new knowledge for the sake of the knowledge is very special for the university. Then you are further, of course, responsible for publishing papers and also for teaching courses and mentoring students. Within the industry, the research or the R&D process, if you like, is a little bit different. It's mostly focused on meeting company goals or specific customer requirements. So, and another thing is that the application process is quite different. There are other financing bodies, and the process for funding for financing new technology is quite different. And often you don't have, the competition isn't as hard as it is within the Norwegian Research Council, for example, for the same resources. When it comes to collaboration, research at university is often team-oriented, but so it's not that you always work alone, but you very often have the freedom to choose when and with whom you collaborate. While in the industry, you are more, in general, you are more working towards a larger shared goal. And it's more critical for the researchers to be able to work as a team on a more continuous basis. And while the workplace culture in academia is research and discovery focused, the culture within the industry is more deadline driven. But that can of course be it can be it can be negative to a certain extent, but also you have a completely different possibility to or a sense of immediate impact in real-time applications, like I mentioned, this R&D process that I really appreciate. Yeah. So, but the career possibilities in the industry, I would claim are better than in academia. And that I say that because it's not only that you can follow a subject as far as you like, because that's specifically for academia, but in the industry you have the possibility to change and go between different departments. It can range from working with R&D. You can work with product and project management, product design, sales and marketing, and maybe in academia it's a bit different because only a handful of universities may be specialized in your discipline, or maybe only a handful are hiring at the time you're ready to apply. So that's you're much more restricted when it comes to what you work with. And also the fight to get the permanent position at the university is getting increasingly tough. Most academics in Norway are temporarily employed with the funding for only for a fixed period. And in the industry, most employees are permanently hired. And another side of that is that the salary is quite very often quite different. A postdoc at the university can receive maybe around 500,000 NOK per year in a salary, while a PhD in the industry can start up with maybe around 600,000 or even more, and it's rising. So that's also a difference to think about. Okay, so does the industry want people with a PhD? I would say definitely yes. People with a PhD have a lot of skills that are vital for the industry. They are really good at critical thinking. They are really good at complex problem solving, and they are really good at correct decision making. Because you can think about all these uncountable hours that you have spent trying to find answers to basically unknown questions. And you know how to attack questions from different angles, following leads through numerous articles and books. And if you find out that you were wrong in your assumptions, you don't feel failure. You learn from it and then you move on. And so that's really positive. There are many other positive sides as well. PhDs know how to deal with challenging management and mentorship, or maybe even lack of it. So no boss or management will surprise them. That's also positive. This also goes for the colleagues, because in academia, there are people from basically all over the world with all kinds of backgrounds and cultures and languages, and there are a lot of nerds. So I think any colleagues after that will be completely fine. PhDs are further comfortable with uncertainty because after years of struggling with their research issues and constantly worrying about and applying for funding, fighting over resources within the group or at the institute, and constant lack of time is just a part of everyday life. And these are all very valuable skills to bring into the industry, where they really need people that are comfortable with risk and comfortable with taking chances. When it comes to collaboration, most people with a PhD are driven by curiosity, and they are interested in knowledge and interested in producing new knowledge, and also confident to produce and present new knowledge. They often thrive in an environment characterized by both competition and collaboration. In other words, PhDs have the drive to want to beat their competitors and collaborate with whoever it takes to come first. And this is another fantastic skill for an industry that always have competitors. And one of the last PhD skills I would like to mention is that we are not afraid to do things we don't know anything about. No matter what has been thrown my way, I've almost always thought, great, now I can sit down and learn something about this because I know nothing about this. And that's actually one of the most valuable skills I would say that I got from my PhD. My manager very often dumps a new theme on my desk that the company should look into or should learn more about. And I know this is something that not only my closest manager values in me, but the company in general. And the last couple of points I will mention is that as a company representative or on conferences or as a partner in a project or also with in a situation with a demanding customer, people with a PhD degree are always listened to. You have a very high academic degree, and that gives you integrity when it comes to different problems, really. And towards most projects, the funding body demands to have a person with a PhD as responsible for the application. So that is also something to remember. So to summarize, people with a PhD are not overqualified, I would say, for positions in the industry. They are very much qualified for almost any type of job. But the thing is that they are often underselling themselves on interviews because they haven't actually thought about these things that I have mentioned now. So they have a really broad range of skills that they should be much better at recognizing. Okay, so there are a couple of things that might be challenging with a PhD degree in the industry, and I think I should just mention them now on my final slide. And that is, while the situation is quite different now than it was 20 years ago, it's still something to keep in mind, because a lot of the different industries are now much more research driven than before, and this is really going in the right direction. Good examples are the aquacultural segment and the energy segment. They have a lot of researchers, people with a PhD in their stable. So times are changing to the better for people that wish to proceed with a PhD in the industry. But I shall finish off with a couple of things that you need to consider, because there are a few potential challenges that you will meet as with a PhD out in the different industries. And the first might be that because it doesn't have to be a problem, but it might be a problem. That your employer and also the customers in the industry that you have found your way into often has a domain knowledge that can't be found online or in the literature. It's very important to be humble and listening when it comes to operational experience and know-how. And you can take this from me because I have really felt it many times, and I still feel it when meeting with the customers. Another point that is that the R&D process is quite often driven by very strict customer requirements that does not give an opening to think about a lot of fantastic solutions, because maybe the operational needs and the possibilities to do fantastic things are not should not be are not it's not possible to merge them. So as you can see in this picture down in the right corner, we have here an elegant solution where on the left hand side, where you have the floating forks, where you have applied both physics and mathematics and made an elegant solution that is just beautiful. But maybe the customer only needed to basically attach the forks to the glass, and then they used duct tape, and it took half a minute. So that is also something to remember, that you very often have to relate to quite strict operational or user requirements. Yeah, and also that you have a fixed budget frame to relate to, and a strict timeline, because these customers very often would want to have the technology they have ordered ready and working sooner rather than later, which means that you have to think a little bit different than you do at the university. So I think the take-home message on this last slide is that a good project and a good collaboration, both internally and between customer and the industry, is that you require a mutual respect and understanding between people with different education and different degrees, as we are speaking about now, different skills, different knowledge, different operational experience, culture, goals, driving forces, languages, methods, and requirements. So it's important to keep that in mind. So yeah, that is what I wanted to elaborate on today. I hope it was useful, and I just want to wish you good luck.
We're going to hear from Kim Sørensen and Kasper Trolle Borup. They are co-founders and the CEO and Chief Technology Officer, respectively, of Ubik Aerospace, and they're going to be talking about PhDs and tech startups.
Hello, my name is Kim Sørensen. I was awarded a PhD from NTNU in 2016.
Hi, my name is Kasper Trolle Borup, and I was awarded a PhD from NTNU in 2018.
So we've been asked to do a short talk about the value of having a PhD once you transition into a more commercial setting. For us, it's a startup that is called Ubik Aerospace that we have both founded. Ubik Aerospace is the world's only provider of an autonomous icing protection solution for unmanned aircraft or uncrewed aircraft or drones. A little bit about the story of how Ubik became a company. My PhD was started in 2013, and the project that I was doing was pitched to me by the US Coast Guard. The problem itself was about understanding icing problems for uncrewed aircraft drones and coming up with some sort of solution for these aircraft. When I began the project, there was very quickly an interest for me from me to go to the States, because NASA had just lost one of their research drones to in-flight icing. So I went there in 2014 and started working with NASA to develop this solution for their specific aircraft. That became the first prototype that we developed and flew in 2015 with the US Air Force in Anchorage, Alaska. When I came back, or while I was in the States, there was quite a lot of interest for what I was doing, both from the US Defense Department, but also from commercial stakeholders that all came by my labs when I was working there and asked me what I was doing. And this seemed like there was a lot of interest, both from a defense side, but also commercially. So when I came back to Norway, Kasper and I had a chat. We had always wanted to work together. And it was evident that this was something that would be valuable for a lot of people. So we agreed that we wanted to start a company talked to the supervisor that I had during my PhD, Professor Tor Johansen from cybernetics, and then also the NTNU Technology Transfer Office that are also part of the founding group today.
Yeah, I guess today we are 22 employees. We have 2 projects with the Research Council of Norway, and we have a single project with the Norwegian Ministry of Defense, which is a development contract for the system. Then we have just started working with Boeing and their drone subsidiary, and we have one more big US company on the way, project with them. So we are scaling. And I guess that's it for UBIC Aerospace. That's a short introduction. And now we can talk a little bit about the value of having a PhD in a startup setting. So we have a lot of new co-workers that have PhDs, and what we tend to see and what we've also felt from ourselves, the value of having a PhD lies in a bunch of different things. So one of them is often, hopefully, the PhD candidate comes with a very high technical level. They're also typically very structured. We see that as a big plus in a commercial setting, like knowing how to structure your day, setting stuff up, keeping track of what you said you would do and actually doing it, making sure that you don't miss stuff. You're there for meetings on time. Then there's also the ability and confidence to learn new skills. That's very valuable. And these could both be highly theoretical skills in your field, but it could also be something completely different, like setting up a balance sheet, doing new PowerPoint presentations, pitching to investors, these sorts of skills. You just have the confidence from learning stuff by yourself during your PhD to actually transfer that into other areas.
Yeah, I can also mention related to that, that Kasper is now the CTO of UBIC Aerospace, and I'm the CEO of UBIC Aerospace. So we've had to transition quite a lot from doing very deep dives into development or research, and then do something that is completely different, but just as requiring or hard, and learning these skills kind of like from the bottom up. And that's been immensely valuable, being through a PhD first and understanding those processes that you go through to actually have to learn these new skills really, really fast. So that is also, I would say, one of the things that we see from other of our colleagues is that they have that same skill and mindset because they've been through it already, having done a PhD. So that's highly valuable. I would also say that so when we get new colleagues that have a PhD, we often see a Pandora's box opening of new tasks. And this is one of the things that is really important for us that our new colleagues come in with, is also being very rich with initiative. You need to kind of be able to set up your own tasks, identify things that are needed in the startup. And we see this also as something a lot of engineers or engineers with PhDs have, but it's also something that not everyone has. And I would definitely encourage everyone who has it or don't to try to cultivate this. It's super, super important to be able to identify tasks and come up with new ideas for certain things if needed. Because we at least see and have seen that with a lot of the people that we have been able to hire, that whenever they come in with different competencies that we have already, they really open up a broad field of new tasks that we actually didn't know we needed to do. But because they have that skill set and because they have that initiative, they are able to tell us that, oh, we also need to do all these things to be able to compete and be able to provide the value that we want to provide.
Well, lastly, I think there's also an element of credibility.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So one thing, for example, when we are out there talking to customers and are pitching to investors, one thing we always make sure to sneak in somewhere during that talk is that we have approximately half of the employees have PhDs. And that just adds a lot of weight. And you can see the reaction immediately, like, okay, wow, it must be a really clever and good system because of that. That's the reaction.
That's right. That's right. Finally, a suggestion or a recommendation would be, when you're in academia, you have things that drive you because they are valuable to you or to your professor or to acquiring your PhD. But the things that are valuable in an academic setting are not necessarily the same as what is valuable in a commercial setting. So I think one of the things that I would definitely encourage is try to think about what is actually valuable and who is it valuable for. And for us being in a startup coming from academia, that was quite a transition. Trying to understand what we did during our PhD, it's all for ourselves, getting that PhD and making sure that we did research that was meaningful. But then all of a sudden going into a company and trying to provide value for someone else is also trying to understand what is then value for them, what is actually valuable, and then trying to build a structure around that and guide everyone in the company towards providing that value. So having that understanding and trying to at least get a better understanding of what it is that you do and where does it provide value for who is really, really an important skill set that I would also definitely encourage everyone to try to cultivate. I guess that's it for us. Just want to say thank you so much for.
Thank you, Kim and Kasper. I'm joined in the studio with Maria Bartnes. She's from SINTEF and NTNU, and she's going to give her talk finished. Now what?
Thank you so much. So I will be talking about my career moves before and after pursuing my PhD and my experiences while doing my PhD as well. So currently I'm a research director at SINTEF, and I also have a 20% position at NTNU. But first I would like to talk briefly about SINTEF, who we are and what we do. And maybe some of you know SINTEF very well already, while others might have heard the name and don't know much about what we do. So SINTEF is Scandinavia's largest research organization. It's a private company. We have just about 2,000 employees from 75 different countries. And we do contract research, which means that we work academically with research methods, but also very close collaboration to the industry and public sector, who are our customers. And we also collaborate closely with the university as well. So there are basically three main ways of funding for our projects. It's by EU, it's by the Research Council of Norway, and directly by industry or the public sector. And in Norway, we succeed with this triangle way of working. We have the industry, the public sector as our customers. We have the research institutes such as SINTEF, and we have the universities. And this triangle way of collaborating is very valuable for producing new knowledge and solving real problems for our customers. So as researchers in SINTEF, we are both close to practitioners, solving problems for them, but always research-based, which means that we also have to know the state of the art, and we contribute to such by working academically and publishing, scientific publishing. Which is why a large amount of our researchers do have a PhD, and we seek to increase this amount. I will come back to some numbers later. But back to me and my current positions. So I'm research director at SINTEF Digital, which means that I am head of one of the departments in our institute, which is called Software Engineering, Safety and Security. Then I have responsibility for working with the strategy for digital, for my department, and for the research groups in my department. I also do personnel management and recruitment, and one of my tasks is also to create the best possible work environment for our researchers. So all aspects of running a department is included in my job today. So I'm responsible for the economy, talking to customers, making sure that we are visible to the public audience, to our customers, in order to get new projects and to share knowledge developed in our projects. And make sure that the researchers have the best possible work situation in all possible ways. So for me, it is a great advantage to have a PhD while having this position, because it's about understanding research, understanding the value, and also the challenge of writing scientific publications, and being able to discuss this with my researchers and understand their challenges during their workday. And also I have a deep understanding of one of the scientific areas in my department. It's impossible for me to have the deep understanding of all the areas, but having it in one helps very much. However, being a manager requires so much more than understanding research and this scientific knowledge and experience. as a research director, I need to be interested in people, respect people being different, and be patient. But it is extremely motivating and challenging to be in this position of working with strategy, set the scientific direction for my field, and talk to customers to understand their needs and put together the best possible SINTEF team to solve their problems. And it's valuable to be allowed to work with and be the head of so many people being experts in their areas. So I'm also adjunct associate professor at NTNU, giving lectures, supervising a large number of master students, and I'm also going to be a co-supervisor for a PhD student starting after summer. So I'm looking forward to that experience as well. And I participate in the EDUN project, which is about increasing the recruitment of female candidates to academic positions at the university. So I started my career as a research scientist after graduating from NTNU as a master. And after working as a researcher with just a master degree for 9 years at SINTEF, I started my PhD project in 2011. So I studied information security in the smart grids, incident management, studied how they prepare for and plan for dealing with incidents, which means cyber attacks towards the power industry in Norway. And looked at how they report the incidents, how they collaborate to solve it, and all the challenges in also learning from incidents. And so the whole loop from planning, responding, and learning from incidents. So I worked with people both from the IT section of the companies and from the process control, which are two different sections or two different areas in the company who now needs to work together, coming from the digitalization, the use of new technology in the power industry. So I ran interviews and preparedness exercises in order to understand deeply what was going on in the companies and help them with improvements as well. And I felt in a way that I was giving back while at the same time collecting data, because they really appreciated that someone from the outside, which was me, being interested in their challenges and contributing to improving their ways of working. And I got a position in the industry. I became the kind of well-known security expert for the power industry in Norway and was invited to conferences, giving talks, and also was visible through different ways of communicating popular science. So that was really a valuable part of my PhD studies. It was not just about sitting in the office and writing papers and looking at numbers all by myself. I was out there working with the practitioners in their everyday life. As part of my research period as a PhD student, I also had a visit abroad to University of California, Santa Barbara, which is a really nice place to live. So that's an opportunity you should really take when you are a PhD student and have the opportunity to experience the world. It was a nice place to bring the kids, to have family life. That's for one thing, but I also got to work with and learn from a great scientific group. So I did some of my studies together with those people as well, in addition to working with Norwegian industry. So that was a period of my PhD studies that I really appreciated, both then and now afterwards. So I really recommend you to look into the possibilities of going abroad during your PhD period. After completing my PhD, I also managed to write 2 scientific papers based on my findings, in addition to what I included in my thesis. So I had 2 journal papers accepted and published after completing my PhD, which was a kind of bonus result from my studies. I also wrote a popular science article based on my trial lecture, which was fun as well. And it's extremely inspiring when people are interested in what I found and what I studied. After my PhD, I worked for 2.5 years as a head of IT security at SINTEF, because I wanted to experience how to work with IT security in practice after doing research for so many years. although I really enjoyed the research way of working. So as a head of IT security, I was responsible for the do's and don'ts for people, for awareness, for the procedures internally, for working with our suppliers, for making the best possible technical security solutions for SINTEF to avoid that we were getting attacked and experience the consequences of such attacks. So that was a very different way of working, but learned a lot from it, and it was very valuable as well. And after 2.5 years in this position, the position as a research director was available, and I felt that I was ready for new challenges, and that was a job that really motivated me to go into. So then I went back to the department where I acted as a researcher in the beginning, as head of cybersecurity, industrial safety, system safety, and software engineering. And the challenges that I worked with during my PhD were still relevant for the industry after those years. And we have a major focus on these issues now as well, industrial cyber safety. So that's a strategic research area at SINTEF Digital, where I get to be involved in the strategic work, talking to customers, setting the direction for the security research for the oil and gas sector, the power industry, and the process control industry in Norway. But I promised you some numbers about the employees in SINTEF Digital. Currently, we have around 500 employees at SINTEF Digital, which is one part of SINTEF. Around 450 of those are scientific personnel, which means researchers, and 57% of those have a PhD. And we seek to increase this rate up to 75%, which means more out of our employees need to pursue a PhD, or we need to hire more people already having a PhD. Which is why SINTEF is a highly relevant place for you to look for positions when you complete your PhD. And I wanted to show you an example of how we staff a research group. We aim for a balance in a group. We need some seniors, preferably with a PhD, and some juniors who are expected to pursue a PhD in the future. And having or seeking a PhD is a natural career path when you work as a researcher in SINTEF. So you need a PhD to be a project manager in some cases, especially when we apply for funding from the Research Council. And when we recruit a PhD, when we recruit a person having a PhD, we get one who already has experience with publishing, who know research methods and are able to use them, who have a national and international network already, someone who understands research and will get faster up to speed in the projects. However, as a PhD, you need to be aware of the differences between working at the university as a researcher and working in SINTEF. Because in SINTEF, we have a bit more time and money restrictions for our projects, and we need to work to get the funding by ourselves. We need to apply for projects and receive the funding. So that's a bit different from working at the university. And you need to work, and you get to work closer to the customers, to the industry, to the public sector. However, we see that people having a PhD may be a bit less flexible when it comes to scientific interests. While masters may be a bit easier to tweak into our projects, and they can develop their scientific interests in line with ours. So that's why we're interested in having both experienced PhDs in the group and also masters seeking to find their own direction. And in general, when we hire masters, we require the grade B so that they are qualified for doing a PhD at a later point in time. So some final remarks from me, some advice for you. Complete your PhD. It doesn't have to be the world's greatest research project. It usually never is. it's just as important to actually finish. Follow your gut feeling and your interests. Possibilities are everywhere. At the university, you get to do research and contribute to education. In the research institute, you get to do research in close collaboration with industry. While in the industry and the public sector, the possibilities are everywhere. So ask people, discuss, and create your own career path. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. That was great. We're going to take a brief pause until 10:45, when we'll be back for a panel discussion with Kristin Collier Valle, Kasper, Trolle, Borup, and Maria Bartnes. I hope you'll join us then. Thank you. Welcome back. I'm joined in the studio by Kristin Collier Valle, Kasper, Trolle, Borup, and Maria Bartnes for the panel discussion about the private sector. So our first question today is, can you say a bit about having a doctoral degree and working outside academia? Has it ever felt like a plan B for you? Or did you see a career within the private sector as a possibility from the start? We'll start with you,
I'll
Kasper.
start. Thank you. Nice. So I think I sort of always knew that I would end up in the private sector and not academia, although I really like academia. I think when I was an intern during my studies, I felt like I identified that in the company I was in, which was a big Danish tech company, like there was, when it was more theoretical, there would be like tool users and tool builders. And for me it was, I felt I wanted to get the theoretical depth to be able to be a tool builder. So that's sort of why I applied for a PhD. Yeah. But afterwards, like I'm happy in the private sector.
Yeah. How about you, Kristin?
I think I didn't, it wasn't a part of my plan to start with. It was a bit of a coincidence that I ended up in the private sector, but because I initially had a plan to continue at university. I really like to, lift up every stone and look for every kind of answer and dig. The deeper I could dig, the more happy I was. But I think with time, I also saw that I really like to be able to help solving a problem, an operational problem, a practical problem. So I really. As I said, it was a bit of a coincidence, my way into the private sector, but I very much enjoy both, and I enjoy having the depth of my knowledge when I went into the private sector. That's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Maria?
I never had a plan. So when I started my master's, I had no idea where I wanted to work afterwards. But then after my 4th year of the master's, I had a summer internship in Sintef. And then soon after that, I got the job as well. So I knew that I would be starting in Sintef. And when I was there my first day, I think my boss said to me, and then I hope you will want to do a PhD one day. And I said, sure. And I thought, it will never happen. I'm not interested. But after working in Sintef with research for some years, then I was really motivated because I understood more about what research is. And I understand that learning research, having the time to learn research methods in a proper way was one of the things that motivated me for doing a PhD. And even if Sintef is private, it's also kind of academic. So it's quite natural to go for a PhD if you want to stay in Sintef.
Right, yeah. It seems like a nice
But I needed
combo.
some years of experience in order to understand that, okay, I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll start with you. Did you find it easier or harder than expected? I guess in this case, you had already worked there, but to find relevant work after finishing your PhD?
Well, I kept my position at Sintef as a part-time job all the time doing a PhD. So for me, it was quite natural to go back to Sintef. Although I was a bit tired of research, as I said in my presentation, I wanted to do something else and to work closer to practice. So I went to this head of IT security job where I really didn't need the PhD, but of course it was an advantage for me to know how are the researchers working in order to reach them with working with security awareness. But I've been in Sintef ever since I finished my master's. So it's maybe the question is not the best for me.
True. It wasn't natural for
it's
you.
easy to find a job in Sintef with a PhD.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about for you, Kristin?
Yeah, I think a little bit I recognize a lot of what you're saying, because I think I started out, like I said, with the plan to continue research, but at some point I was actually, you can see headhunted, but it was a little bit like this, because at Equinor, at the research center here at Rotvoll in Trondheim, it was they had started a new project. They needed a person with my background. They needed a person that had been doing fieldwork in Arctic under Arctic conditions. So I started working there for a period of time, and then I saw that it's very different to work towards a technology or a solution. It's very different than doing research for the case of the research. So I saw that the research methods and also the way of because I think maybe I had a little bit of a transition in Equinor, because I was still doing research, but with a goal, but a very specific goal of solving a very specific problem. So after that year, I found my way into. It was actually one of the partners in the project, that company here in Trondheim called Aptomar. So I contacted them because I had some ideas around this environmental monitoring, and maybe in a broader sense than oil spill preparedness that I had been working with. So and I saw that the difference was, I was a bit surprised, because it's a very different way of working. So all the time-consuming, turning every stone that I was used to, it was much more hands-on, much more operational goals. So I had a bit of a natural transition in my year in Equinor before I went into the industry, because the way of working is quite different. And I think it's very, very good to have both perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess for you, with a startup, it's a little bit of a different kinds of question.
Yeah. Getting the job in itself was pretty easy, being a co-founder, but it's, I guess, keeping the startup alive and making it thrive, that's difficult and a lot of hard work. So,
right.
Yeah, just for context, I work for a startup called Ubic Aerospace, and we're Trondheim located. It's a spin-off from NTNU. During the PhD, at least my friend did the research in that field, and we found out that there would be some sort of interest from industry in creating something within that. So we started the company, him and I, together with the professor and the transfer office. Yeah.
Cool. So are there any special courses or skills that you might recommend that would prepare someone during their PhD for a career in the private sector, in your experience? Kristin, do you want to start?
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I should have taken some more economy, because that's something you need to deal with at some point. Because at least in my position, I'm deeply involved in the R&D process, although I'm not doing the research myself. But I see that part that has to do with applications for funding, all that part, follow-up, administration of projects, etc. You need that part. So in my case, I can talk only for myself now, but a little bit of project management and economy, I think in my case at least, would have been really practical. Not that I would do a complete, but a course or two would definitely have done me good.
Oh, that's good advice. How about you, Maria?
Yeah, I would say even though doing a PhD is about being the really expert in one scientific area, I still think it's a good thing to remember that there is always a context. So having courses from different scientific areas put into your PhD, I think can help you look at your expertise in a bit different way, and maybe prepare you to collaborate with others as well. And I think that's what we need in order to solve the big problems in the world currently. So I myself took courses during my PhD from 3 different departments, and not just from one. And I think that really helped me in doing better research and understanding my area from different point of views, adding more value. Yeah. So looking a bit up from your expertise, I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I don't think I would suggest like specific courses like aerodynamics, but more like skills that derive from doing the PhD. So I think, and that's something you have to cultivate, but I think communications is extremely important. Like you'll use that for the rest of your life, both in and out of work. Then task ownership, like being able to, if somebody hands you a task, you either complete it or you let them know why you can't complete it. I think that's very important.
Right.
Initiative, like we have been lucky to hire a lot of skilled people, and when an expert comes into UBIC Aerospace, they usually tell us like, you should also be doing this and this and that, and I can help you do it. And that's very nice. I think that's very valuable. And I think the last thing is maybe, I think most PhDs are like that, or at least learn to be like that, is being structured. Like not showing up late for meetings and having an overview of the task you need to do, these sorts of things. And I think a lot of PhDs actually learn that if they haven't learned it before.
Right. Well, those are all good. So how important is your PhD topic when you start in industry? What's your opinion on that?
So I think the field, from my experience, the field is important. Like, are you an electrical engineer or are you a mechanical engineer, for example, or something completely different? But the topic itself, unless you're hired by SINTEF to do research on something very specific that you've done research in previously, for me it doesn't feel that particularly important unless it's either academia or research organization where that's what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree with that. I think all the skills that are more, because it's difficult to say something general, because we all ended up where we are now in different ways, and we had different plans, etc. And I think that it's difficult to say something general about that. But the thing that is really valuable are all the skills that are general for a PhD. I think because it can be different topics, it can be different areas, so it can be but I think communication, like you say, that you do all the time. How to write in a proper way, how to speak in a proper way, how to reach out to people on different positions with the different. It can be customers, it can be research institutes. You learn really good communication skills. That's something I would agree totally to, and also that you're analytical, and that you that if you are given a task, or if someone comes and asks something, you can say, I don't know, but that's something I will find out. And then you don't, or at least in my case, I never felt scared of getting a new task in my lap that I wasn't capable of solving, because that's sort of what you do. So that's a very valuable skill that I think everyone with a PhD feel that they have.
Yeah, I totally support that. I think it's about all the other abilities that you develop when being a PhD student. Collaborating with others, hopefully. I know some PhD students work a lot by themselves and alone, and I would really encourage them to seek collaborations, because that's valuable, both national and internationally. And communication, as you said, if you're not able to communicate your expertise, your knowledge, it's actually not very useful to others, because what you know cannot be used by others if you're not able to communicate it in different ways. And as you say, the analytical approach, that you're able to ask questions and not just take answers for the complete truth, but you're actually able to go behind the scenes and understand, and maybe be a bit more critical. So I think it's more about all the other abilities which are very useful in all jobs. Yeah.
True. So how do you feel your contribution to the team differs because you're a PhD?
Maybe specifically on that point that we just talked about, because I know that we have a lot of people with very specific that do very specific things in our company. I work now in Aptomar was bought by Norbit, which is a very big technology company here in Trondheim. It was bought back in 2017. So we work now we have a group for the entire ocean segment. So it's technology for monitoring both on the surface or from space, for that matter, and everything that is below the sea surface. So we have a lot of people people, of engineers that are working specifically with producing sonars, producing camera systems, etc. I think, but if we have to look into a different area, look for possibilities within a different domain, everything that the company would like to know something more about, it's very often dumped on my desk, and this is I think that they know that I like to dig into things I don't know a lot about, and also value a lot that that I like it and my skills at doing it. So I really like to sort of get my hands around it and get sort of a short resume that I can communicate out to the others. So I do a lot of this, making people talk together and distributing new information, asking if people need something, trying to find out the people who can help the others. I have a lot of these. It's a lot connected to that part of being able to take on new knowledge, really.
Yeah. What do you think?
So I feel that within my situation, we've been very lucky. So I think we have approximately half PhDs, half non-PhDs. Not that I want to make that border between people. And I feel like we've been lucky to have a lot of clever and skilled people in. So I don't really think of it in those terms, like everybody contributes. So for me, I haven't had a lot of experience with that. But I know from myself, from before the PhD and now, I'm better at taking new information and, like you said, and learning stuff on my own. I like to read math stuff, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without the PhD. So,
right.
Yeah, and for me, being a full-time manager, of course, that's an expertise in itself. But I feel that having the experience that a PhD gives me, and being a kind of, or was a research expert at some time, I think it makes me better able to understand what my researchers are doing and the challenges they meet, and to talk to them in a way that they know that I understand how they work. So I think it just gives me a kind of higher credibility as a manager. And you can definitely be a manager in Sintef without having a PhD, but I think it gives added value in some ways. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, Kristin, the next question is for you. Did you need PMP or any special courses in project management in order to get your job as a research manager?
Well, I never got to ask someone that because since I sort of ended up where I did without a plan, then but like I said before, it would have been practical. But it wasn't necessary. I mean, everything can be learned. So I think in my case, it's a bit of a coincidence that I am where I am, and we don't have a lot of people with a PhD in Norbit, but it's because it's a different. It's really highly skilled people, but they are working in. It is a different way of working. So I think it's all these skills that we are talking about now are also skills that I have sort of learned to appreciate, and maybe that I have developed more since I have that background. I think it at least for Norbit, I think I contribute with a lot of things that are not that I didn't take any courses, and I wasn't very aware of them when I started there, but I see now that maybe I'm a little bit unique when it comes to that to the diversity of skills, maybe.
Okay. So Maria, the next one is for you.
Okay.
So why is Sintef aiming to increase the amount of employees with a PhD? Will these be filled with senior positions? And how will this affect the project structure if there will be 75% PhDs, meaning there will be less, for example, lab engineers, administrative staff, and more people managing the project?
Okay, that's we aim at increasing the number of PhDs among the scientific personnel, so it doesn't really affect the administrative personnel and the lab engineers. But it's so it's about increasing the number of PhDs among the researchers that we have, and it's about increasing the research quality. 30 years ago, it wasn't that important to have a PhD as a research scientist in SINTEF, and I think it's just a trend that it's been becoming more and more important the last years, and when we see that need to I mean, having a PhD it's an education in doing research, and if you're going to have a career in research, it makes sense, and it is to improve the quality of research. And I said in my presentation that you sometimes need a PhD in order to be a research manager for projects from the Research Council. And it's to show that you are actually the best qualified person to set the scientific direction for your project. Mm-hmm. It's not just for having PhDs as project managers, but it's for being the expert and setting the direction and leading the other researchers in doing the best possible research. And our most important deliverable is research-based knowledge, and then you have to do research. You need to know how to do research, and then you need a PhD.
That makes sense. Let's see. So this is maybe a good question for you. So do you know if it's possible to do the PhD and a related industrial job simultaneously?
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah, so we actually do have industrial PhDs, or we have one, I think. And then we're also related to some research going on at NTNU where we collaborate, good synergies, and we hire some PhDs in on 25% positions. So that is definitely an option. Yeah, and I think it's working out quite well for those PhDs. I'm allowing myself to speak for them. I hope that's okay. So because like a lot of research being done, like for me it was, if you wanted to test something on drones, which is the technology I work with, like there's a lot of work leading up to that to get one set of results somehow. And here they have a whole infrastructure, meaning the rest of us working together with them to make that work, so you get like the practical implementation, and then they can do some research on the results afterwards. So I think I think that makes a lot of sense, but you of course have to be a little careful that it's a project that you think is interesting, that you want to work on, and that the company is aware of your obligations as a PhD candidate.
Right. So I know you had mentioned that SINTEF hires people in the process of having a PhD. What's your experience with those students? Do they end up staying on? Do you hire them permanently after, or how often does that happen?
We usually either we hire people who already have a PhD, or we encouraged our own employees to go for a PhD and then have a part-time position at SINTEF at the same time. Because while they're doing their PhD, it's kind of better than that they focus on doing their PhD and completing it, and then come back to us afterwards. So we don't hire PhD students that often while they are doing their PhD. But we are happy to include them in our projects so that they get a group of researchers to work together with, and they get access to the industry. And so we're more than happy to collaborate with PhD students, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And then what's your experience with NORPIT?
I think it's certainly encouraged, and I think that we see more and more in the industry in general that the industry is research driven, and we have to be, because if we are supposed to solve all these tough problems with we're changing to clean energy, infrastructure for growing populations. We constantly need new technology, and it has to be research driven. So it's whether NORPIT is focusing specifically in hiring more people with PhD backgrounds. I think it's not a specific goal, because they are much more looking for the right people, and those people have different backgrounds. So they are really good at finding the right people, and also finding the right people to work together. So, but I think that we are involved in a lot of projects, and both within the monitoring offshore oil and gas segment. It is one thing that a lot of things have changed, and but also towards the aquaculture, for example, we see that it's a completely different ballgame than it was 15 years ago. So we see that the industry has a lot of people. They have specific challenges or problems that they need solved, and it's a lot of focus on having people doing a PhD to actually have the right background to know what direction the technology development should take afterwards. So I see that has changed a lot, and we collaborate in a lot of, we sit in a lot of consortium and research projects that include several PhDs, and it has always been like this. So I think it's like you said, it's really important that we are able to communicate and talk together and understand each other and listen, because I think maybe it has been a challenge over time that we are dealing with industries that are maybe a little bit conservative. I mean, traditionally, and it's a lot of practical or operational approaches and a lot of knowledge that is related to how you operate a system or how you cultivate salmon, just as an example. And then when you come there with and have read all your books and you're supposed to talk to this person and find a solution to then you that is a challenge. So I think to really recognize that we have different backgrounds and different skills and different knowledge, and really be good at listening to each other. I think that's what we really need to do in order to get where we need to get.
Okay.
That was a long answer.
I liked it.
So this person asked, so I've never worked in any industry. I've been working as an assistant professor and researcher only. It's my keen interest to work in the industry, especially in SINTEF. Could you please suggest to me how I can get an entry in?
Yeah, well then, based on your scientific interests, you could look up to find contact persons in SINTEF within the right field. We have researchers working in every field. I think every single field you could think of, it could be room for you in SINTEF. And go to our webpage, find a contact person. That's the way in. And also look at the vacant positions. There is sometimes open positions, of course, but you're fully able to apply even though we don't have an opening. So yeah, just find a person, take contact, and then you'll get help in order to find the right group or department. So just contact us, call someone.
Yeah. Okay. Would the same be true in your companies?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we're always looking for people, and we're growing rapidly at the moment. So just reach out. Yeah.
Okay. So even if there's not a job posted,
yeah, definitely
send in.
Yeah, it might just be a little later, maybe in a half year then, but still. Yeah.
And it has been mentioned in the talks earlier today, but I think also that it's important to be a bit focused on how you sell yourself in, because that's also a bit. I'm also reading through a lot of applications, and I see that people with a PhD tend to undersell themselves over and over, and I think it's really important to just because I mean. Yeah, your papers are there. They can always be checked, but to tell this is me. This is what I'm interested in. This is what I'm good at. This is what I like working with, and just do start by a presentation of yourself, who you are and what you like to work with. I think it makes you stand out, and because, like I said, we are looking for the right people because we are working very closely in groups. So we need to know that this is a person that can, and then you can always, your papers are there. So I think it's more important to actually focus on your on the skills that you think stand out a bit from the rest. Yeah.
Okay. So it seems that all of you actually have ended up in manager/director positions. Is that the typical trajectory of a PhD, or are there other typical trajectories? I mean, it sounds like you guys have researchers working for you, but ultimately, do they end up in a manager position, or how does this work?
I think it definitely depends on the profile of the person, like the personality profile as well. Like you could be a specialist as well if you want to. I think some people are less interested in that structured work of running a project or managing a project. So I think that definitely depends on the personality type and their interests.
Yeah, and in SINTEF, it's much more typical than that you remain in a research position and you climb your way up the kind of research ladder, starting as a researcher, going on to a senior scientist, senior research scientist, and then ultimately a chief research scientist, which is the kind of highest level of the ladder that you could reach in SINTEF. So being a researcher with a PhD is a career path in SINTEF. But we do need people with PhDs as managers as well, especially managing the research groups. And that's the manager closest to the researchers who are responsible for developing the people and developing their career. So we do need PhDs to have that positions as well. But it's easier to keep them. I mean, they tend to prefer the research position.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Yeah, I agree, and I think when in my case it wasn't. I think that also was a bit of a coincidence, but it wasn't something I specifically went for, or I think it's yeah. Since I have that background, it's quite. It has been quite natural to give me that position, and also as also was mentioned that very often if you apply for research fundings, you require a PhD in order to apply for the funding. So they need to know that the people with that background is involved in the project. So that was it. That yeah, and I have been that person on several occasions, and then so I have naturally ended up being managing the project and getting in the right people and making sure that because people are working on different things and sewing it all together and making the overview, and it has sort of come a little bit natural, I think. Yeah. So I wasn't specifically hired to be a manager, not at all. And I'm not managing all the time either. And I don't want to. So it's
Comes
okay.
with a price.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you guys all have a background from science, engineering, technology. But what about others with backgrounds in social sciences and the humanities? Do you think they also have opportunities to work in the industry?
Definitely. Well, you should answer for the industry, but at SINTEF, it's important to us to combine the social sciences and technology into our projects. Again, in order to solve the big problems of the world, we cannot just focus on technology. You need to understand the people who are going to use the technology or are being exposed to the technology, and you need to understand the organization and the effect on society. So you're going to need the whole view in order to produce the best possible results for the future. So we hire people with social sciences backgrounds as well. Also in my department, where we work with software engineering and security and safety, we still have people with social sciences. We need that. Look at human factors. So that's the possibilities in SINTEF at least.
Yeah, the same. And I think with all the new requirements and all new sustainability goals, I mean, it's the political part of what you do is becoming increasingly important, and it's not. I mean, that's a field in itself, and it's not something that just comes easily. So I definitely think that background is it's just as valuable as my background in my company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think for us. Right now we're quite tech heavy, but we're transitioning into a new stage where it's more likely that we would hire somebody like with those skills. And I think in time, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. So this person wrote, I appreciated Kristin's words on the difference in salaries, permanent and temporary positions, etc., between academia and industry. Can you, Maria, and Kasper speak about typical salaries and contracts in your experiences?
Well, for a newly educated master, we follow the recommendations from Tekna. And from then on, you have some additional, what's it called, to your salary, of course, every year. And as a PhD, you get a jump up on the ladder. I think we are usually not able to compete with the best paying industry. But then again, we have very good conditions for insurances and the complete freedom you have as a researcher in your everyday life. So we kind of compensate with others, with other things. But we're definitely above the public sector.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess we've also been following Tekna. The people who got in very early, we needed very skilled people. We also needed to, like, we made them co-owners, key personnel. I think that's important that the people who work a lot are compensated in that sense. I think in time, within the next year, we'll probably change up the hiring strategy or like the compensation strategy, because I think we've identified that we need the best people to be able to succeed. So we'll probably try to buy them in that sense. Yeah, yeah. But I think that's very dependent on company to company. But that's going to be our strategy.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. But of course, we need to compete with the other companies. So it's for SINTEF as well. We need to try to adjust the salary to what kind of employer market is the person relevant for.
Yeah.
So yeah. Mm-hmm. So it will differ depending on which scientific area we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, because we need the best people as well.
Yeah,
you need the best people, and I need the best people.
Always eternal competition.
In combination.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So this one's for you, Kasper. What's the typical success/failure rate for startups? Do you know?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know the statistics, but I guess it's in different stages, right? Like there's a filter along the way. I think it's something along the lines that 20-30% make it past the first couple of years. It's not that high. It's something like that. I'm not certain. I don't know the statistics. So it's but I do have a lot of advice on how to do a startup. So if somebody's interested in that, they should feel free to reach out. Yeah.
Okay. So this is kind of a specific question, but if any of you have experience with it, just pipe up. So have you experienced any difficulties with applying for jobs due to non-EU national/security clearance? Like you wanted to hire somebody, but you weren't able to get them through because of difficulties.
Yeah, we experience those issues quite often these days, based on the recommendations from the security authorities in Norway. There are some countries, and especially outside of the EU, that is very difficult to hire from these days, especially into the security field. Mm-hmm. And it has to do with both our customers in critical infrastructure, who have some requirements, of course, for whom to share information with and not. And it's also about making sure that our people are safe, because the security authorities talk about the threats towards them as well. So we need to balance that, and we need to take care of and be the best possible workplace for our employees. So we have our concerns about hiring people from certain countries due to that. Yeah, it's a challenge these days.
I could see. Yeah. Do you guys have any comments on that?
I'm not specifically involved in the hiring, so but I know there has been a couple of challenges. So I think that's I can't say anything more specific about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, something to be aware of at least. Yeah.
Definitely. Let's see if there's any more. I know this doesn't apply to everybody, but this will be the last question. So how long before you finished your PhD did you start applying for positions? Does that only apply to you, Kristin? Maybe.
No, I didn't. I didn't apply for a position, any other position. I was 100% sure I wanted to take a PhD. I just wanted to make sure that, not that it was relevant for anything at all, just because it was relevant for me, because it had to be something I was interested in, and that's it. So I didn't have a specific plan on a specific topic, and I didn't apply for anything during my PhD either, because I planned to continue at university, and then this possibility just turned up. So I didn't do anything to make it happen. Yeah.
Okay. Did you guys put out any?
Well, no,
feelers
it's not
at all,
relevant
or?
for me, but I would say that it depends. I mean, as an advice for the listeners, I would say it depends very much on which area they are studying, because it's quite big differences in the market for how easy it is to get a job. So it's a bit difficult to give one advice that goes for all.
Yeah, I guess we started UBIC Aerospace while I was still doing the PhD, so it was a little bit stressful at times, but I would have definitely, if I knew I wasn't going to do that, I would have started applying for jobs or looking for jobs a year before ending, I think, something like that. It would be sad to just say, like, I'm stressed out now, I'm not able to handle it, and then the PhD is done, and then, like, what do I do now?
And having a job waiting for you could be a good motivation for actually finishing.
That's a good point.
It might happen that you kind of postpone and postpone and postpone because you don't have anything else waiting for you, which is a bit dangerous.
One more good idea.
Just one more paper, just one more. So it could be a good idea to have a deadline out there, which is kind of controlled by others.
Yeah, I would definitely agree to that. And also that you actually get a bit of an overview of your possibilities, because it's a bit difficult to know when you sit there and you're into your research field, and you should look up a little bit and maybe even do a little tour, and go visit different. If it's something specific you're interested in, take a call, go and visit them, talk to them. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Let's go to career days for master students as well. I mean, you will meet the companies, especially on Glashaugen. That's the case. There's a lot of opportunities to see who could be relevant and talk to those.
And maybe the things you are writing about is really relevant for someone, and you just didn't think about it because, it takes a bit of it's a bit difficult to look up when you sit there and are very deep in the. So that's definitely something you should do.
And give talks on industry conferences to promote yourself. It's about communicating your results, of course, and also for showing that yourself you exist and you know something and you could be useful for that industry.
So in the last couple of minutes, any last advice you would give to PhD students?
I would like to repeat the advice that I had in my presentation, to actually finish your PhD. And it's never going to be the world's best research project anyway. It's more important to actually finish. The PhD has the most value when it's actually done.
That is very good advice.
I think that's a very good advice. And don't be too hard on yourself, because in the end, it doesn't matter that much.
Right. Relax.
Maybe that is changing also a little bit. It depends on whether you do, what kind of a PhD you are doing, what's your topic, because a lot of people are now directing. They have actually operational problems, maybe, or issues that they can direct their work towards. So I think then it's much more. We're going much more in that direction now, and I think that's quite wise. Have that a little bit at the back of your head, that the things that you do can be used by someone. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't turn stones and do research for the sake of the research, but there are maybe two different roads there. So you should be a bit focused on what you would like to do.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Well, thank you all for joining me today. And we'll be back at 1 o'clock for our next session on applying for a job. See you then. Welcome back to our final session of the day, How to Write a Job Application. First, we have Morten Carlson. He's the Senior Advisor in the Student Services Division at NTNU. He'll be giving 2 short talks, the first one on how to write an ordinary job application, and the second one about writing your CV.
So, you have your CV ready and you find a vacant position that you really want. Then it's time for you to write an application letter, and preferably one that catches the company's interest. So in this video, I am going to talk about writing applications to jobs outside of academia. But regardless, a good application requires that you have read and understood the vacancy text for the position. Your application letter should be considered a reply to the vacancy text. And though you may have a lot that you want to tell them about yourself and your qualifications and experiences, unless otherwise stated, an application can be 1 page long, no more. So you may have to make a wise selection of what you want to tell the employers about yourself and make sure that you answer the vacancy text in a good way. A trick to do this is to think about the vacancy text a little like an exam. Each bullet point of requirements, wants, and tasks listed in the vacancy text can be viewed as a question that needs an answer. There are many ways to build an application letter, and I will now give you an example of a framework that I myself like to use. In the first paragraph, after a short formal part where you present yourself, you start with your motivation. Why do you want this job? Or what is it with this company that excites you? Do make sure that your motivation comes through early in your application. One other thing to note is that in your application, you should focus your writing in a way that says what's in it for them, not what's in it for me. The company has put this vacancy out because they have a problem that they need to solve, and through your writing, you are going to convince them that you are an interesting candidate that can help them with this problem. In the next paragraphs, you present your competences and experiences that enables you to solve the relevant tasks in the position. This is the part where you answer the wants and criteria of the vacancy text. Make sure that this part does not become a short story form of your CV. This can easily be done by backing up your statement with examples. Preferably examples of how you have solved similar problems and tasks before. And the reason for this is that if you do not back up your statement with examples, they are so much more easy to dismiss as claims you just made up. I would also recommend you to look for buzzwords in the vacancy text and use the same buzzwords and language to describe yourself that they use in the vacancy text. Say, if they are looking for a person that has experience from leadership and project management, you can perhaps write something like this. I have experience with management of projects, both through my education and work experience. In my PhD project, I was responsible for a sub-project where I had to coordinate the research of 5 other researchers from other countries and institutions. This involved everything from daily operations and follow-up to handling of disagreements and in which direction the project should take. While this has been both demanding and exciting, the project's participants has given me feedback that they have felt both seen and well followed up throughout the project's period. Then, in the last paragraph of the application letter, I like to summarize and end the application with a pitch. Why are you a good candidate for this position, and why should they invite you for an interview? I do feel it's important for me to point out that when you have taken a PhD, you have through your research projects acquired a number of qualifications and competences that are relevant for many different kinds of jobs. Not everyone acquires the same competences though, so you have to figure out for yourself what kind of competences you have acquired and how they can be used in the job you are applying for. And that brings me to my last point. Many think it's hard to put their own competences into words. Therefore, we always recommend students to do a mapping of their competences before they start the process of job hunting. And the same applies to you. This can also be a useful exercise to do again before writing a new application letter, especially if it has been some time since you did it last. If you are unfamiliar with the concept of mapping your competences or need some help, NTNU Career has resources on this on their webpage. Good luck and happy job hunting! Hi, my name is Morten Karlsson and I'm a career counselor at NTNU Career. Some of the most frequent questions we as career counselors get are in regards to CV. What does a good CV look like? What should be included? Should I have a picture? How long should it be? Should I have a template that stands out? In this short video, I am going to tell you what I look for in a CV and hopefully give you some tips about how you can write a good CV. Note that what I'm saying here is in a Norwegian context. It will most likely be useful in other countries, especially the Nordic ones, but you should always check what is the norm in the country where you are applying for a job in. But first, look at these 3 templates for CVs. These are some random templates I have found on the internet, but they are quite representative for what you will find if you Google CV templates. Which one do you like the best? A, B, or C? Chances are that if I have asked a group of 100 people this question, it would be roughly split evenly among them. Some people might like A or C the best because they have a picture. Some people might prefer A because it has colors. And some people would perhaps like B. My point here is that there is no one solution. What CV you think looks the best has a lot to do with personal preferences. So, if you're wondering if you should go for template A, B or C, it really doesn't matter. Go for the one you like the best. Often it doesn't matter at all, because if you're applying for a job through a web portal like WebRecruiter, you are locked into their setup. The CVs you have seen so far has been one-page CVs, and in some countries that is the norm. In Norway, your CV can be up to 2 pages, with normal font size and columns. References, academic works, publications can of course be on page 3 or such. Okay, so here's another example of a CV, and this one is in 2 pages. And even though it has no fancy colors or margins or fonts and is quite simplistic, I think it's a good CV because it contains what is important. Firstly, your name. Your name should always be the title of your CV. It should not be CV. You want them to remember your name. Secondly, you can have some personal information. You don't have to give your date of birth or your home address, but your email and your phone number must be included here so they can reach you. You can also choose to have a profile picture here. That's totally up to you. It's not necessary. But if you choose to include it, make sure that you have one where you look good and it's you feel that it is representative of who you are. Then a lot of people choose to have something called either profile, key knowledges, or summary. Now, this is not necessarily, but it can be a way to pitch your experience and expertise to a potential employer. This is a summary of your skill sets. It's not your personal characteristics, but what is your skills and why would they be interested in you. After this, you can have education and then work experience. Now, most likely after you get some more work experience, these two will change place, so that work experience comes before education. In a CV, the most important, or the more important it is, it's closer to the top. So after you gain some more years of work experience, I would reckon these two will switch places for you. After education, work experience, there is usually a section with some other information. It could be posters, presentations that you've done, it can be other relevant skills, it can be IT skills, or it can be other skills that you have used and learned through your PhD, courses that are relevant that you have taken, and language skills. And at last, in this CV example, we have references, because there is some room to spare. References can be on a separate page if you want to, and if you do not have any room for it on the 2 pages. When you choose to include a reference, you need to have some contact information there. These 2 cases, I have given email address. Phone number is also okay, but email is really important if you choose to include a reference that can be hard to reach. And if you see here, during or in the education and work experience, when you putting dates up, we use something called reversed chronology. That means that the newest entry is always closer to the top. So that is something that is quite common in CVs. One of the most important factors for a good CV is that in addition to you being happy with it, it needs to present your experience in a good way. In other words, what you choose to include needs to be relevant for the position you are applying for, and it needs to be easy to understand and for the person reading it. To make your CV more relevant for the position you are applying for, you need to tailor your CV to that position. Highlight your most relevant experiences. Remove or give what is not so important less space. Also try to describe your experience in a way that highlights the most relevant in each of the entries. If you follow these guidelines, you will most likely have a CV that is okay. And then it's up to you to tailor your CV into something that you're happy with and highlight your experience in a way that makes the companies interested in you.
Thank you, Morten. The next section of this session talks about applying for a job in academia. We'll start with a video about applying for a job at NTNU specifically, and then we'll end with an interview I did with Harry Remon-Piero, who is the head of computer science department at NTNU.
To apply for an academic post at NTNU, you fill in the application electronically and upload documentation in our application portal. As soon as the deadline for applications has passed, you will be sent a list of all the applicants for the position and information about the process ahead. The process starts with an academic assessment. This means that an expert committee with members from both the NTNU and other knowledge organizations will assess the submitted applications. Everyone who has submitted an application will be sent a list of the members on the committee. When the assessment is complete, you will receive it, together with information about the process ahead. Relevant applicants are invited to hold a trial lecture. If you are invited, you will be informed of the topic and the date well in advance of the day itself. After the trial lecture, you will be assessed and interviewed by a recruitment group. Both the trial lecture and the interview take place at NTNU's premises on one of our campuses. In special cases, we can also carry out the process via video conferencing or Skype. When all applicants have been assessed, the recruitment group compiles the assessments in a recommendation where the relevant applicants are ranked. The recommendation is submitted to an appointments committee, which makes the final decision on which of the recommended applicants will be appointed. When the appointments committee has made its decision, those who are appointed will receive an offer from us. Those who are not appointed will be informed of this. If you are the lucky applicant who gets the job and you accept the offer, you will receive further follow-up from us at NTNU.
Hi, I'm Diana Gallenbohr, and I'm speaking today with Harry Piero. He's the head of the department in the Department of Computer Sciences. Today we're going to be talking about academic job applications. So my first question for you, Harry, is what's different about writing a job application for an academic position compared to another type of job?
Well, there are several differences, but the few of them are more important than others. One is you have to think about the freedom that you get when you do academic jobs, and also the type of jobs. Usually you are doing research rather than developing things. And you are not bound to strategic things from the company rather than your PhD or your grade or degrees. And also career-wise, you don't really have a clear career path from a PhD positions unless you apply for a new job. Rather than in a company, if you work as, for instance, a software engineer, in a company, you would probably get some letters to bosses or something else. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Or in academia, you can go from, of course, you can go from PhD fellow to postdoc fellow. You can be a professor, associate professor, and professor, for instance. But you have to go through a clear path to get there. And the path is the production in terms of publication, acquiring grants, and so forth.
Right, and that's different from
yes.
other positions.
Yes, especially in the industry, you don't need to think about the grants.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, usually. Yeah.
Right. So a little bit on the same track, but what's important to think about when you're applying for an academic position?
Yeah, one thing that is very important is that you are motivated to do research. So research is very, very important. And also because you are, for instance, in a university like NTNU, you would be asked to teach, for instance, eventually. And then you have to be motivated to do that as well. So being mentor for young people would probably be a very, very good way to show that you would fit in academia.
Okay. Are there any common mistakes that you see people making when they're applying for an academic position? And if so, do you have any tips of how to avoid those?
Yes, there are several pitfalls, I think. One is people not reading the job announcement very carefully. And they tend to just jump to the conclusion in the application and just apply because sounds very interesting instead of find out exactly what is asked in the position. And the other one is writing a good application is very important. So you have to put everything that is asked in the letter. Don't leave out any relevant information at all.
How long should that letter be if you need to include everything?
Well, the letter shouldn't be long. You have to show us as well that you can, write, for instance, a cover letter that is not too long, showing your motivation, showing why your background fit the position, and so forth. In our positions, especially in the PhD fellowship positions, we ask the candidates to write a statement of purpose. And with that, you would be able to show why your background can be used to solve a problem that is asked in the position, for instance.
Okay.
And what kind of relevant problems that hasn't been addressed before, you can also put in that. And usually there are only 3 pages, and you have to kind of fit everything in the 3 pages.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're also supposed to describe your scientific motivation in this application. Can you describe what exactly that is and what you're looking for?
Yeah. So scientific motivations is actually quite challenging for a lot of people to write, because some confuse it with the cover letters. Why my background would work very well in this position. Others would think that this is just a way to show that I'm very well motivated and I can do a job. But usually what is asked is how motivated are you to do the research? So for instance, if I have an example of a position about applying computer science method to health, for instance, then I would expect the candidate to write why why the problem is a good problem to solve, and how can I solve that problem so that the society can gain from it. For instance, how can my research eventually impact the society?
Okay.
And why are I motivated to solve that problem?
Right. So another thing that is asked is what are your pedagogical qualifications? And so how would you go about showing or proving that you have those kinds of skills?
Right. Yeah, so exactly we would like to have you to do, for instance, try lecture. And then you can show that you can, for instance, interact with the students. You can show that you can have slides that are very easily to read, easy to follow your presentations and so forth, if you don't have the formal qualifications. But usually we if you apply for a professorship, for instance, positions, we would ask you to have a documentation that you have the qualification, the formal qualification as well. But if in the PhD positions, we don't really ask for pedagogical qualification per se. But if you would like to, for instance, during your position, you would probably get also the qualification by supervising master students, for instance, or do some teachings activities, help the students do their assignments, not homework, assignments.
Right.
Yes. But normally if you apply for a professor or other scientific positions, we would like you to show that you have the formal qualification in place before applying. This can be shown, for instance, that you have taught courses at universities, or you have done some pedagogical courses that you can. So if you have done that, please show that you have done that.
Yes.
Yes. List all the courses of taught, for instance.
Okay.
Yeah. Or if you have supervision experience, that is also pedagogical work.
Good to know. So if you're asked in for an interview for a scientific position, what's measured or assessed during that actual physical interview?
Well, again, depending on the type of job. So as a PhD, I would actually like to check if you have the analytical skills. If you are curious enough, if you are independent enough, if you can think independently, for instance, if you, if you have the skills to kind of present the problem, and that you can, from just thinking, find a way to kind of different different aspects of the problem, show that you understand the problem, you show that there are solutions to the problem, but I don't know how to get the solution, but there are some ways to do it. Show different ways to get to the solution, for instance.
Okay.
Yeah, I've actually, to give you an example, I've used this like the questions I ask sometimes, not all the times. How many golf balls to get to full to fill up these yellow buses in the United States, right?
Yeah.
How many golf balls do you need to fill these buses? So there is no correct answer to that, but the students have to show, or the candidate have to show, how they can get to reach the answer, right? Just to give an example. So this will show whether they are just wanted to jump to the conclusion without explaining how to get to the conclusion, or they wanted to think different ways of solving the problem, for instance.
Right. That's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Well, do you have anything else that maybe we didn't cover or that you want to elaborate more about that you could just give as advice to people?
Yeah, well, so one of the things that I actually would like to recommend people to do is think carefully before applying. Read through the job announcement very carefully. Don't leave out anything at all that are relevant. Don't write too long application. That also is because that would just irritate the readers. If you have relevant materials, especially related, that can be relevant to the position that you're applying for, put that down. And remember, we are not trying to find your fault. We are trying to find how you fit in our positions.
That is very true.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I think that's all we have for today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. And I hope that you'll be able to join us tomorrow, where we'll be talking about careers in the academic and public sectors. Once again, if you haven't registered for tomorrow's session, you can simply go to the webpage and find the Zoom link there and join us tomorrow. Hope to see you there.